pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Hello out there, savvy investors, girls and boys, men and women. Today's episode is over Section 8. Should you rent a Section 8? What is Section 8? What's the deal? So on and so forth. Anyway, this is a struggle of mine for years on end. I've been doing Section 8 from the jump since 1999. The very first property that I purchased, there was a tenant in there, and she was on Section 8. So I have had run-ins with Section 8. And in here in Oklahoma, there's actually two Section 8 offices. So there's Oklahoma Housing and Fair, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the government Section 8. So there's two actual in Oklahoma City. There's two Section 8 offices. And so you got to know which office works your area or so on and so forth. So that's one tip that you need to know. So why is this a subject? Well, the other day I was talking to an awesome investor, and he was talking to another investor that has 60 units all on Section 8. And he had one girl running his whole empire, and he never had to worry about it. Now, that just sounds all gravy in la-da-da world of Section 8. But when someone truly asks me what's my thoughts on Section 8, I cringe. I have not had wonderful luck. I just left court today over a Section 8 tenant that didn't pay her rent, and she had a lot to say, and we had a lot to say, and it just never goes good. But that's for you to judge. You shouldn't do it based on me. There is some successful investors out there doing Section 8, and so this is more of a canned podcast today. It's not thought out. This is off the cuff, so I will make some errors, so just keep this in mind. Remember, trust but verify. Always verify. In my experience, if you're listening from around the country or the world or whatever, this is Oklahoma. So anyway, first of all, if you don't know what Section 8 is, Section 8 is a program from the government that renters must qualify, and there must be an extremely low income to qualify for the program. And I know through the years they've cut budgets, they've added budgets, and one year they stopped issuing vouchers. One year I heard that, people were on a voucher waiting list for 3 or 4 years, and then bingo, their number got called up. It's like the lottery, free rent. I just did a Section 8 lease the other day, and I asked the gal, I was like, how'd you know about Section 8? She said, my mom's been on Section 8 the whole time, and now she's on Section 8. So Section 8 seems to be around a long time. It can be a very positive situation for some folks that really need the assistance, and I think there's a place for that. But as a landlord on my side, I see the real dirty truth about Section 8. Folks, ladies that are on Section 8 that not supposed to have men living there, have men living in there. When it's time for the inspections, the men just happen to disappear. They're not around. They come around. More than I can want to tell you, but I have had so many, at least 10 Section 8 people leave my house in a disaster. Filthy, dirty, tore up, stole appliances, holes in the wall, and the biggest and roughest, I believe, are cockroaches. Seriously, it would take me. I have one property that I've been dealing with cockroaches for 3 or 4 days straight. 2 different companies, baits, bombs under the house, in the attic, and we still find those suckers. And was it worth Section 8? Now, I'm not saying that all people on Section 8 are dirty or bad or not integrity, but on my side, and I deal with a lot of low income, it just seems to be. Now, it is a positive that every month that Section 8, there's money, Section 8 money is in your bank account. And so, yeah, you don't have to kind of interact with them, with people in general. You don't have to collect their rent, but it just shows up. So we're just going to go over a couple key things. All right. So here's some situations. A lot of people are, hyped up on Section 8. One reason is that a positive is that they can get higher rent. That's not necessarily true, but that's a big mystical myth, whatever. Myth. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. Myth. I've had several times where I'm about to sign a lease with someone, and the gal that I'm about to sign a lease with says, what's the comparable rents in the area? Well, I was like $700, $650, whatever. And she asked, can you go down to $725? In the middle of signing the lease, I had to cross it out. So I didn't get top rent. Some people, if you go to their Section 8 website, it does say 4-bedroom brings in $1,000. That's crazy. And so I love it when I see wholesalers or other investors selling, this is a Section 8 property approved, and it brings in $1,000 a month. That's rare, and I don't see it. It may be posted on their website, but the people that do run Section 8, they're great people, but their goal is to help as many people as possible. So if they're throwing out $1,000 for everybody, they're not going to have enough for everyone. So I don't know about that. Another positive thing that I hear out there that I do believe is true, it is guaranteed. Okay? The money is guaranteed, but that's not necessarily all that what it is. You have to have an approval process. So let's rewind this whole guaranteed rent. So one time I rented to a gentleman and signed the lease and moved in. Everything's great. And then 6 weeks later, it's about a week late, his portion was only $24.50. And so I was like, no big deal. I went 2 weeks slide by. It's not, his rent was $650. I'm thinking $24 is not a big deal. Well, I chased the dude down, finally couldn't get a hold of him. I have to take possession of the property. So I post my normal due diligence, 5-day notice, send them certified mail, go through the whole rigmarole because you got to follow the legal process of evicting someone. I evicted him. Deadbeats out. One day I took pictures. There were boxes in there. The next day he was gone. Well, I'm going down the road and I noticed that Section 8, here's something that you need to consider, sucked out the $500 or $625 out of my account. And I was like, whoa, that ain't right. So I called Section 8 and I said, hey, what's the deal? Why'd you take the money out of the bank account? Well, he never really took possession. Ma'am, yes, he did take possession. I saw the boxes. He gave him the keys. He signed the lease. He drove on off and went into the property. Well, he never turned on the utilities. Man, I got jacked on that deal. First of all, not only that I lost several months of rent, you got to wait 2 weeks for an inspection. So we'll go over that here in a second. Then they did the inspection. I had to go through all the rigmarole, put up a storm door, put on a railing, do all this kind of stuff, move the guy in. He moves in. And then they suck my money out because he didn't take possession. And so I was like, what do you mean by possession? Because in my world, when they take the keys and they walk on in, that is possession. She said he didn't turn the utilities on. Okay, so he had a homie, a girlfriend or someone. He probably couldn't get utilities turned on in his name anyway. He probably owed the utility company money. And then he just slid on in, had utilities because he lived there for 6 weeks. But the agency, the Section 8 agency, took their money back because he did not take possession. Folks, and I know there's some great apartment building out there, apartment management companies that before anyone moves in, they have to have the utilities turned on. That's a little tidbit for you out there, landlords, new landlords. Someone says they're going to move in, see if they can qualify. Hopefully you're pulling their credit. See if they don't have any outstanding balances with utility companies. All right. So here's a quick con to the situation, the approval process. So you want to be Section 8. I understand, just like my fellow investor has 60 units and he's, living the dream, driving around doing nothing while one lady just runs the whole process and money just flows in his bank account. I get it. But see, you got to keep in mind, it usually takes about at least a week or 2 weeks for, that's my little alarm. Welcome to the Savvy Investor, Savvy Landlord Show, the Savvy Radio Show. We got alarms popping in the back. All right, so back to the thing. You got to go through this approval process. Well, they got to inspect the property. Well, sometimes they're a week or two behind. Sometimes they're fast. Don't get me wrong, but they have to come out there and inspect the property. Well, they inspect the property and say they see some daylight coming in from the front door. They look behind the front door, the door's shut, and there's a beam of light coming through, just a real small crack. Boom, they'll flag you. They say, you got to get this fixed. You're like, okay, well, you get this fixed. It may take another week. Now, the local Section 8 agency has been really good lately. They've been jumping on stuff, and, it'll be 24 hours, 48 hours. But I've had in the past where it's been another week. So it took 2 weeks to schedule an initial inspection, did the repair, had my handyman out there. Then another week later, I had to have another inspection. And so, and it's sad for the individual that has the voucher too. They're hanging out, waiting. They really want the property. But here's the deal. I'm losing out this whole 3-week process and of turning down other people. Well, I don't turn them down anymore. Just so you know, here's a Section 8 tip for you. When I have a house on for rent on the internet, and I'll take as many applications all the way up until the day I sign the lease. Here's the reason why. One, I've had a gal just change her mind at the last minute. And with Section 8 kind of behind her, it was kind of an awkward situation, but she found a better home somewhere else. And, I went through the 2-week process, but that was a rookie move. Now I have a document that they signed that goes into the detail of you changing your mind, you will lose your initial deposit. Here's a couple other tips for you. Don't work the deposit off or take payments on the deposit. If they're getting free rent, and if they can't come up with a deposit from somewhere somehow, keep in mind it's already starting out kind of rough. All right. Now, here's a couple other positives that I like. One is that it is a long-term tenant. This gal that I was with in court today, and we had some issues with her, but she's been living in the home for 5 years. Yes, for 5 years we've been receiving a check, but after we went in there to do the last repair just recently, it was a disaster. And when I start calculating all the costs to get the home at least back up to rent ready standard so I could rent it quickly, it's a minimum of $3,000 to $5,000. $3,000 if I'm over there hanging sheetrock myself or laying tile myself, probably $5,000 to repaint the whole house, fix a bunch of tile that were broken. She hasn't changed the filter in the AC in the filter box. That's probably going to be another $200 to $300 repair minimum. For the A coils are going to be messed up. Again, they're not taking care of the property. I think when people get something for free, like free rent, it's just like, hey, why do I care? She's not seeing money changing hands because the money is going directly into our bank account, and it becomes a game. All right, so that's one other situation. Man, I wish my mind's going blank. All right, what else? Let me give you else another Section 8 story. I can't think. I don't know, man. My mind's going buck wild. Anyway, so that's it. If you have a question about Section 8 and what you think, so here's the ultimate pros and cons. Yes, it is guaranteed money. Yes, it's work. Yes, you got to do it. Yes, there's good people on Section 8. Yes, there are tons of deadbeat tenants on Section 8. Hopefully that helps you or not. My friend that asked me really jammed me up and asked me 1,001 questions. Keep in mind, this is what you're working with. But here's a great idea. Go by where they're living now. Find out, because the landlord may not say, oh, that they're a good tenant or they're not a good tenant. They usually want to pass the baton to you and you deal with the headache. Okay. But if you really want to know, this could be a great lucrative thing, because if they stay in the property for 5 years at $700 a month, you do the math, the assets should be paid off by then. But don't be a fool thinking that it's just going to be easy or money's just going to rain out of the sky and it's going to be automatic in your bank account. I recommend driving to where they live now. Are they on Section 8 right now? How long they've been on Section 8? What's their goals on Section 8? Oh, here's a story that I just remembered. So I got a really good deal on a property and it needed to be completely rehabbed. So I was like, all right, I can do this. And then this time I'm going to Section 8 it. That was my intention. And so the first thing that you need to consider in Section 8 is what's the quality of the home and what are the key things that you need to get done to make it Section 8 ready, right? Some people think, I put my house on the Section 8 list and boom, people are just going to start running up to your door and they want to rent it. Well, here's a couple key things that you need to know. Number one, that the doors have to work functional. Some Section 8 offices require a storm door on there. Every outlet needs to be functional, and every outlet needs to be consistent, meaning it can't be a 2-prong and then somewhere down in the house it's a 3-prong. So if it's a 3-prong electrical outlet, you got to all the outlets got to be 3-prong. Now, if you're a rookie, you're like, okay, that's no big deal. I can go to Lowe's and get 56 cents for outlets and just wire them, no big deal. What they do, though, they go look at every outlet and they test every outlet to see if it's grounded. So, back in the day, I was more resilient than I was, or zealous, I guess would be the right word. I went into a house and hired someone to change out all the outlets and make them all 2-prong. Okay, again, that's another hurdle, hula hoop, so on and so forth. You can't have any gaps around no light can penetrate inside the home. So like the front door, if you need a door sweep, you might need to put weather stripping on it. Another thing, all the windows have to function up, down, and they have to have a lock on them. If you have a lot of older homes, this can rack up a bill real fast. So those are just the basic things of Section 8, of having it prepared. You can't have any chip paint anywhere. You can't have any chip paint outside. And I understand that most or majority of the people on Section 8 usually have children and young children, and you really don't want them chewing on the paint. So, scattered paint around. But again, if you haven't, the paint really doesn't need to be replaced, but it's all the way on the fascia, 12 feet up, or on a high pitch roof, 20 feet up in the air, yeah, you're going to have to scrape and paint that. So keep that in mind. Just, I denied a house not too long ago. I was like, no, we're not. It was Section 8, and I knew that Section 8 was going to come over there, but I knew that I needed to paint it. And I didn't want to invest $2,000 on another ghetto property just so I can Section 8 it. And anyway, I rented it anyway. So here's a story. So I bought this property inexpensively. It was a decent deal. It's a long story, but I got a good deal on it, and I just rehabbed the whole thing. So I was like, man, I'm going to put windows in this deal. I'm going to redo the floor. I redid everything. I got it done. The whole time I'm like, man, I'm going to Section 8 this deal. I'm so excited. I'm going to get $700 a month, every month, free and clear. Blah. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to kill it on this deal. So I get the house all done, get the paperwork done. You got to make 3 copies of your lease. They have a copy. The tenant has a copy. Everybody has a copy. I get all the way down to the sign the dotted line. And this is one rookie dumb question I didn't ask. When the lady that was from Section 8, she told me, and I should have asked this from the get-go. I go, ma'am, she's like, her portion that she's going to pay is $50. Oh, the portion that the Section 8 agency is going to pay is $53. Okay, I almost had a heart attack. This is a $700 rental, and this gal has to come up every month with $640 something, whatever the math is. You math wizards out there, $447, $647 a month. Now that doesn't make sense, right? You're on Section 8. Section 8's only paying $50 roughly for your rent. And I was like, man, this is not going to go well. Seriously. I was like, how is this poor gal with 3 kids going to roll up with $650? Well, the Section 8 person explained to me that, it's based on her income. She has not turned in her income, and that's why they just gauged it on that. So let me get this straight. This is all based on what her income is. I get it. But if she doesn't turn in the paperwork at all, then we're stuck at this number. Correct. She has to resubmit her paperwork. So anyway, make a long story short, this gal still lives in the property. It's been about 4 years or so. And her income has changed dramatically front and back. And every month for the last 4 years, she's been late on her half of her money. Now, right now, currently, her payment out of the $700 is $258. But again, is it really worth it? If I would have just had a regular tenant that was owed the money, but every month I'm sending this young gal a 5-day notice to pay her rent, and she strolls in here like no big deal. Here's my $258. So That's one story. Here's another one I'll give you. So I had a Section 8 house to do the all rigmarole, get the inspection, jumped over hula hoops. Well, this gal, she told me that she had a 3-bed voucher. Now, each person, so when you're qualifying a Section 8 person, you got to ask you, how long is your voucher for? Because if the voucher is expired, no good. What is the voucher for? Is it a 2-bed, 3-bed, 1-bed? Now, you can move someone in your 3-bed with a 2-bed voucher, but the 2-bed voucher only goes to a certain amount of money. And, of course, I have been stung on this once before. The rent is at this property was $650, no big deal. But her voucher is only good for $550. And it's illegal to do kind of a backyard deal like, okay, I'll let you move in and you pay $550, or the government pays $550 and you pay me $100 on the side. And that qualifies for, because I know this was a hot property, but I wanted to put it on Section 8 because I didn't want to mess with it. It's kind of a further drive from my office. I didn't want to mess with it. The girl's like, yeah. And so she threw me under the bus basically and said, no, I actually called Section 8 and I was upfront and honest. I said, we advertised this property for $650. This is the deal. She said she was going to pay me the $100. Well, the Section 8 office said you can't do that. I understand. The girl threw me under the bus. She got in the property, and for a whole year, every day I lost $1,200 on this property because I lost $100 a month. Anyway, another way to work around that is how we started renting appliances to people. So now when a Section 8, it doesn't matter anyone, because you got to treat, Fair Housing Act, you got to treat everyone the same. You can't rent appliances to Section 8 people, and you can't not rent them to other people. So we have a policy here that we rent appliances, washer and dryers or refrigerators. So if you're trying to get to a certain number, say $800, and their voucher is only for $700, but they can afford an extra $100 a month, and you don't want to leave money on the table, you might want to offer, hey, we can rent you appliances, a refrigerator for $50, $75, or $25 a month, and that would get your $800 a month rental. You'll still get the Section 8 rental. But anyway, so that's Section 8 in a nutshell. That was kind of a long-winded 20 minutes of Section 8. But you be the judge. I definitely would recommend going to your local meeting, maybe post on Facebook, does anybody know about Section 8, and get some more stories. Don't just rely on just the circumstances that I've had. I've had some people that have been on Section 8 for a long time, and they've been wonderful people. I think all people are wonderful, but you must be cautious with Section 8. Know that you're going to have delays. Know that they're going to have access to your bank account. Know that if you do have an issue or even a legal issue, realize that they are in the program for a specific reason. They don't have money. So if they tear up your floor because, and this has happened, that their space heater, because they didn't pay their gas bill, their space heater falls over, and they got a 1980 or 1960s space heater with the orange blazing, falls over, burns down the floor, and they can't replace it. They can't fix it. So what do you have to do? You can't sue them. Can't go after them. They got no money. They're on Section 8. So in my world, I try to opt out of Section 8. I do, if I have a property that is Section 8 already, and it's working Section 8, and it's a pretty easy transition, I'll Section 8 it. The property that I just went to court with today, I acquired the property on Section 8, which is really cool. When you buy a property on Section 8, like you buy it from the landlord, it's a 1-page document, and they file it and make sure you got all your LLC and all that stuff in order and your bank draft. Boom, next month you got money in the bank. But you inherit that tenant and you don't know the history, and that investor that's selling you the property may not be forthcoming. And we've just realized that, and that's why we were in court, because we're not playing around when it comes to repairs and breaking things and putting cat litter down drains. And we do have a camera, and we found it, the abuse that was being done to the home, and we were tired of it, and we were billing her for these repairs that we tended to keep coming over there with clogged toilets. And so we finally did make it to court, and we did win. And so, but it's going to be a disaster on the way out. So anyway, I'm not saying all Section 8 people are wrong or bad, but do your due diligence. If you have a comment, if you want to know more about it, text ASK, A-S-K, to 545454. You can email info@thesavvylandlordbook.com. I'd just be curious if you have any questions, or if you want to rant about something that you've had. Other than that, I hope this podcast today encouraged you in some regard. It wasn't all positive, but it is positive because now you know. The more you know, the more you make. So don't go out there willy-nilly saying, hey, I'm going to do Section 8. Do your due diligence and go out there and buy assets. Thanks for listening to The Savvy Radio Show. My name is Stephen Van Kallenberg. I am The Savvy Landlord. If you want to hear other episodes, go to our website, thesavvyradioshow.com.
Thanks for listening to The Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter @LandlordBook and always be buying assets.